Hello and welcome to My Mom Calls It Soccer. I'm Michele.
I'm Chase. I call it football.
And today we're doing a mini episode just specifically on the Champions League. And so, Chase, Tuesday is leg one. Tuesday and Wednesday are leg one of the Champions League. Is that correct?
Yep.
And so the games that we have going on Tuesday, we have Bayern Munich versus Inter Milan and Arsenal versus Real Madrid.
Okay.
On Wednesday, we have PSG versus Aston Villa. And then we have Barcelona versus Borussia Dortmund.
Yep.
So all of those games can be seen on Paramount Plus. We're going to talk specifics about the games, but I have kind of a silly question for you, which is on Tuesday, both of those games are at 12:25 Central Time, our time. And on Wednesday, both of the games are at 12:55 Central Time. Why do they play those games at the same time?
I'm not exactly sure.
It was a trick question I threw out there to you. And I think that this is a very American question of me because as a marketing person and the way we think about sports in the United States, we would try to not schedule those games at the same time when we're down to really just 4 games in terms of the viewership and all of that.
The problem would be time zones. So maybe if like one of the games is at 12:25 for us, that's probably
It's like
late
probably
noon,
6:25 or 7:25 at night.
night.
But why would they
time
not?
game.
So do you think, is it because...
Well, so then for the other game, that would be going into midnight,
Okay.
And then,
And since
kids
they're
it's in
weeknight-
the week, so kids have school.
So they want to have evening games,
Adults
but
have
not too late
jobs,
games, but don't want to have daytime games.
Yeah.
Okay, it makes sense, but
Because
it just
they're in the week.
seemed to me that they're both going on at the same time instead of being able to watch 2 games independently. I did see that on Paramount Plus, you can watch them side by side. So like if anyone was watching March Madness and watching multiple games at the same time for basketball, the same kind of thing. So both
I guess it would
times.
kind of be like how March Madness is. You know,
Yes.
you can't, do one game on every time zone,
Yes.
especially if they're in the week, because people have jobs, kids have school, so you kind of have to do a little bit of a compromise and just
and
do them
probably
both at the
more-
same time.
They are scheduling games also for their fans who come in person as opposed to just the television viewership. It makes sense. It was a
They
curiosity.
make more money off of people coming to the stadium than they would off of TVs.
Well, they probably make a lot off TV contracts, but that's
Wait, they make a lot of money off of stadium.
sure off of people coming. Okay, so how about you break down these games for us? Kind of tell us what you expect. The first one, let's start with Bayern Munich versus Inter Milan.
I think it will be a close game to a pretty easy Inter Milan win. At the same time, it could go either way. Bayern Munich have picked up some bad injuries.
Okay.
Alphonso Davies, who's a Canadian, is out for the rest of the season or out for a month, so he'll miss this game. Upamecano is out for the rest of the season or out for a month.
And he's a Bayern Munich player? Okay.
He's French. So that's 2 defensive liabilities.
And is Inter Milan still in first place in the Serie A? And so they've been having a good year. So you think that Inter is probably the favorite in leg one. This game is at Bayern's stadium. So, but again, this is leg one, and then they'll play leg 2 in a couple of weeks, I think.
In 1 week.
In 1 week. Okay.
So Inter Milan, they're so like defensively solid as well. In the Champions League, they've only had two goals scored on them, and one was a pen.
Okay.
So,
and again, when you say pen, for those of us who are just getting used to it, a penalty kick. Okay.
And as well as they don't have a fullback who can make good overlapping runs, put in good crosses. That's a little bit of a, bad end on the offense and defense because he's one of the best left backs in the world.
Okay.
So.
And who is that?
Alphonso Davies.
Okay. And he's Canadian and hurt.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay, let's go on to the next match. Arsenal versus Real Madrid.
I'd say like 2 weeks ago, I think it'd be like a Real Madrid like easy win. But now it's like closer, and it's not because Arsenal have been doing better, but Real Madrid have just been doing a whole lot worse.
Okay.
So, in the midweek, last week, on Tuesday, they went against Real Sociedad in the Copa del Rey.
Okay.
And the game ended 4-4 at their home stadium in the Bernabeu. And Real Sociedad are third in the least amount of goals scored in La Liga. And they put 4 past Real Madrid.
So Real Madrid, what place are they in La Liga?
They're second.
They're second behind Barcelona.
4 points behind.
Okay. And so they just have not been playing very well.
No.
But Arsenal has not been playing very well either. No. So kind of toss up maybe between who shows up this week, because Arsenal, they had a draw this weekend. Is that correct? Okay.
But in the week they had a win against Fulham.
Okay.
So it's just, and they have Saka back, and Gabriel Martinelli has been doing pretty good as well.
And that is on Arsenal?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it seems like they're focusing on the Champions League now.
Okay.
They've said that after the Everton game that they drew. So it seems like they'll be putting, all their chips on the Champions League. They'll go full force on it.
That's where they're going to put all their efforts.
Yeah.
Hi, Miso. Our cat Miso has joined us for this discussion. Okay.
And Real Madrid, they're so weak on defense.
Okay.
They in this weekend, they lost to Valencia 2-1.
Tell us about Valencia. Are they a good team, a mediocre team?
They're usually a giant in La Liga, but they are 15th place, 15th to 14th place right now.
And how many teams, do you know how many teams are in La Liga?
There's 20.
20, okay. And is it the same thing with La Liga? I know I'm getting off topic here, but do their bottom 3 face relegation?
Yeah.
Okay, so both of those matches happened this Tuesday at 12:25 Central Time on Paramount Plus. On Wednesday, we have PSG versus Aston Villa. So tell us what you think about that game.
I think it's going to be a pretty easy win for PSG. It's going to be dominance. They have some of the best midfielders and forwards, and they kind of lack defense, but they're stable enough to go against a team like Aston Villa, who kind of has some good forwards, but they're not at a big quality. And PSG beat Liverpool, who I would say probably has a bigger offensive quality than Aston Villa.
But Aston Villa does have really nice uniforms.
Yeah.
Let's remember that their uniforms are good. So
minute winner, they have really nice uniforms.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And and then the second game, on Wednesday is Barcelona versus Borussia Dortmund. And so I know you're a homer for Barcelona, but what is your independent opinion of how that match will go?
I don't want to be arrogant. I don't hate Dortmund. I actually like them as a club. I think they're a really respectable team. I don't like to come off as cocky, but I think it'll be a pretty easy win for Barcelona, especially as the first leg will be at the Montjuic, which is Barcelona's home stadium.
Okay. What's it called?
The Montjuic.
The Montjuic?
It's a Olympic stadium.
Oh, from when they had the Olympics in Barcelona, which you were not born yet, but yes, it was fabulous. It was very good.
It's because they're renovating the Camp Nou. They're making it into what's called the Spotify Camp Nou. It's going to be way bigger It's going to have 105,000 seats.
Wow. So where they are playing is not their home stadium. No. It's the stadium that was built for the Olympics, and they are there temporarily because their renovated. Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. So Barcelona will have some rest, not having to, take a long trip.
To home game.
Yeah. And Dortmund, after the first leg, will then have to face Bayern Munich, and they're 6th place in the Bundesliga, and they can't really afford to drop points. I'm sure they want to have European competition, so they're going to be having to play Barcelona in the midweek, then after that play Bayern on either Saturday or Sunday, and then go back and play Barcelona again.
Okay, so they are going to have to play Bayern Munich in a Bundesliga game. And right now you are saying that they are 6th in Bundesliga. And am I correct that when you're saying they want European play, you're talking about next year, and they have to finish within a certain spot to be able to play in the Champions League. Is that correct?
They have to finish 6th, 5th, or top 4.
Better?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 6th would be Europa Conference League.
Okay, and that's Europa? Is that correct?
Europa Conference League.
Okay.
And then 5th would be Europa League. Then top 4.
The top 4 go to Champions League. Okay, and so when we talked about Champions League the first time, you may have said that, and I didn't catch it. But when I was researching for this week, that's what I saw about the Premier League, and I actually read something about an article kind of about that. I didn't realize that there was a specific cutoff, which makes sense. So they definitely want to finish in the top 6 so that they are guaranteed to get to play in these extra league
competitions because they can make money from that.
Okay, and they can win hardware, right? They can win trophies and all the silverware. Okay, so again, Tuesday, Bayern Munich versus Inter Milan, Arsenal versus Real Madrid, both games 12:25 Central Time on Paramount Plus. Wednesday, PSG versus Aston Villa, Barcelona versus Borussia Dortmund, both at 12:55 Central Time on Paramount Plus. My one takeaway from getting ready for this was I can tell how much I'm learning from you because I actually knew who every one of these teams were, which I know is probably not that big of a deal because they're all big, the best teams. They're all big teams, but they are all at least becoming familiar to me, and I'm learning things about them. I could have a conversation about each of these teams, and so you are doing a good job of teaching me about all of those. So, okay, that is our mini episode on Champions League. We hope everybody tunes in and watches games this week. We'll have a full-length episode available at the end of this week. Thanks.